This is the 1,000 things I never knew about recruiting, but I'm only going to go through 10 of them. Okay. Hi. Thank you so much for coming. I'm going to give you 1,000 things I never knew about recruiting, but I'm going to stop with just the 10 best ones that I've learned, because I've learned so many things about recruiting that I didn't know. And I thought I did a little bit of recruiting when I owned a Remax, but nothing as opposed to what I've learned since I've joined this company. So I guess the first thing I would tell you is I learned this definition from a recruiter that I like. Her name is Casey. I can't remember her last name, but she's really good. And she says, a recruiter is someone that cares enough about another human being that they will sit down and have a conversation about what's going on for that person, what's working in their life and in their business, and what's not working, and what can be improved, and what their hopes and dreams are, and position them for the resource to help them go towards the future. And I don't know that we may have had that vaguely in our mind in the past, but I think it's just as simple as caring for people, which in our fast-paced world of real estate, we really come in contact with, a lot of agents. And it's really almost like being on an elevator with the people that we do business with. When we're looking on an elevator, how many of us really look around the elevator and say, hey, what's going on with you today? No, we're looking at the sky, we're looking at the numbers going down, we're just not connecting. And it's a shame, because after so many years in real estate, I'm ashamed of the number of really personal relationships that I have with realtors. It should be hundreds after all the people that I've worked with, but it's not. It's in a very small amount. So I would say being mindful of the people that we do business with. And it's in our business, it's easy to think about like being in the forest. You don't see the trees for the forest. You just get going from one deal to the next. It's from one paycheck to the next. It's really too fast. And sometimes you gotta slow down to speed up. And you got to really connect. I taught listing for a long, long time, and I feel like I'm pretty good at it. And I did list 42 houses in 1 month. And that was before the downfall. In the downfall of 2008, they were just giving you listings like 100 at a time. But of course, now listings are so hard to get. But life changes, people changes, the way you do business changes. And all those things have come to me when I've come to EXP. So many changes have happened, but recruiting is a lot like listing homes. I mean, you can go in with the best of intentions, but one of my friends that I used to work with says, I taught a course down at the board, and I said, you don't talk for the first 30 minutes. You just listen. And she said, oh, I could never do that. Because from the time she hits the door, she starts telling instead of selling. And she doesn't take time to diagnose. She doesn't take time to really get to know that person and really connect. And I'm a very active listener. And when I'm listening with somebody, I'm looking at their eyes. I'm really focus on what they're saying and not what I'm going to say next, which is too many real estate agents' problems is they're trying to figure out what they're going to say next instead of really getting into where that person is. And I honestly think that in today's market, we have even more of that problem, because we've decided in the first 3 seconds or maybe 30 seconds we've diagnosed them in the first 30 seconds. And that's a little too quick. So we have to be mindful. We have to really learn how to listen. We have to really learn how to switching that philosophy to the agents when we're talking to them. We have to learn how to listen to them and actively listen to them. And sometimes it's easier to do that when you're in person. You can do that on the phone, but it's a great technique when you're in person. So we got to slow down to speed up. It really can't be about the money. It just really can't be. It's got to be about them and where they are, and everybody is not ready when we're ready. And that's just the way it is. Frankly, when Tina came to me and Sharon came to me, and I remember Tina saying something like, I'm just so tired of selling home after home after home. And I hadn't gotten to that place. I was still trying to hit 500. That was just my big thing is I got to break 500. You know, I've been in this business for like 3,000 years and I need to figure out how to sell 500 homes, and why the heck can't I do it? Why is not that a magic number? So I really wasn't thinking on the same level unless she was tired of selling homes. Now, there's been times in my career when I've been burned out, but I wasn't in the particular burnout phase when I talked to Tina and Sharon for the first time. But it really can't be about the money. It's got to be about the people themselves and where they are and how you can help them, if you can help them. And you can't solve all problems. You can't. You have to wait sometimes till timing. I want to tell you about somebody that I ate dinner with. And I was just so proud of myself because I love this person. I mean, this person is with another company and we've been friends for a long time. And I did not talk about EXP the entire dinner until the last 3 minutes. And then I like spoiled the whole thing by just throwing that thing in. And I just felt so bad because I knew I had made a misstep. So I would ask you, do you know when you made a misstep? Because it's really easy to make a misstep in this business. It's not a one and done deal. You know, I got so used to listing homes and having a pretty good track record on it that, you know, I went out to get the listing, to get the paperwork, and it was one and done, and I had the business. And recruiting is not that way. It's a longer, it's a nurturing. I'm a D-type personality, at least I was. I was a D personality when I formed a team, actually many, many years ago before I had a really big team. I was more of an I. So I was probably more suited at that time to being a great recruiter. So the next thing I say that listing, recruiting is like listing is because you've got to track. You've got to track how many people you're talking to. And as you've heard me say many times, even when I bought my own RE/MAX, I was still tracking the number of for sale by owners that I talk to every day. And you have to track the number of people that you're talking to every day. And when you talk to them, you've got to have an approach that's really comfortable to you. So I just like when I was in listings, I love for sale by owners. I love to get the appointment. And I did that. Every day I sat down to have 2 hours on the phone, which was usually my minimum. I'd get 1 to 2 to 3 appointments. And I love that. It actually helps to like people and have curiosity about people. And I had a natural curiosity about people, where they were going, what they were doing, and why they wanted to do it. It called me a little bit of a yenta, but I want to know who you like, who you're dating right now, who you got mad at. I want to know everything. So I've got a lot of natural curiosity about you and your life. So don't mind if I ask you very personal questions, because that's just me. So the next thing I would say that I've learned about recruiting is really you got to sharpen your vision of your business and how recruiting will or will not fit into your new business at EXP. You got to find your balance between selling homes and spending times getting to know agents, because if you're me, I haven't spent a lot of time in the last 20 years getting to know agents. Now, you may be more like Daphne, who's spent a lot of time and who has nurtured a lot of relationships, but I haven't. I just probably have less than 2 handfuls full of people that I could call and ask to dinner. So you got to find that balance, and you got to decide, you know, because we know the statistics. We know that only about 10 to 12% of the people that get into EXP actually participate in recruiting. So it's only the top 10% that do it. So do you want to be in that group is a real question. You might get some by just people asking you, well, hey, why'd you join that company? And then that something may happen there, but unless you make it a portion of your life that you've dedicated to recruiting, it's not going to be very successful for you. So ask yourself the current, now I want you to write these down because they're really important to me. They help me a lot. So I want you to ask yourself what the current story you're telling yourself is about your vision for EXP. What is the current story you're telling yourself? And here's another thing to ask yourself: what I've not been willing to commit to, what I've not been willing to admit to, rather. I'm not willing to admit to, let's go back to the first one. What's the current story you're telling yourself? It could be, I'm too busy selling homes right now. And my life is too unorganized to get it together to set a certain time to get to know people and dedicate that to get to know people. You might be telling yourself, yeah, everything else in my life is a wreck. I just don't have time to do this. And I just don't know what to say when I call them. So I don't know yourself right now about adding recruiting to your, just give me some ideas, the story you're telling yourself.
Well, for me, it's just, what do I say? I mean, I have my own version of reasons for why I joined, and I can give people that. So, that I felt like he was, that I felt like it was more of a business model that I wanted for myself. But
right.
And I can express why I did that to people, but it is that it's just, okay, how do I start that conversation, and then where does it go?
Yeah.
The one thing I think for my advantage or my benefit is that most people know where I was before.
Yeah.
And so they're asking the question, well, why did you go to EXP?
That's great.
So I'm able to give a different perspective from it. But I think that's kind of one of the challenges is, for me, it's always, why did you do it?
Yeah.
What do you say about it? What would you say about it?
Yeah.
Where you were before?
Yeah. I think that's good. And hold that thought, because I think that's important. What are you not willing to admit about your status as far as your business, your recruiting, whether or not you want to be involved in it? What are you not willing to admit? It's a really important question.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I'll give you what I'm not willing to admit.
You're not trying hard enough.
Well, is that what you're not willing to admit to yourself?
Yeah.
What I'm not willing to admit to myself is defeat. Yeah. I'm just going to learn how to do something. When I attempt something and I'm not as good at it as I wanted to be, I'm going to learn how to, I'm not going to accept defeat. I'm going to learn how to do it. So asking yourself what you're telling yourself, asking yourself what you're not willing to admit is really important. And then asking yourself the story you're telling others. And I like what Tracy says is, I can always say what I did to myself, why I did it myself. And people ask me that. Actually, somebody very prominent asked me that the other night, and I could have got into a whole binge. But what I said to her and said was, it was a great decision for me. It's a great decision. And I stopped it there. I chose to stop it there because remember, I'm a really good listener. And I really can list a lot of properties. And one of the ways that I do that is I make them want to hear from me. That's the reason I do not speak when I walk into the house for the 30 minutes. I have perfected the, oh, nice. I will say one word, right, excellent. But I'm the eye rolling, wow. I'm good at that. I'm good at that type of thing. So I don't want to step on stage giving them my spiel before they've told me everything that I can possibly get out of them. And I think if you have a little bit of that in your presentation with EXP, it's going to be easier for you. So the next thing you're not willing to admit, I told you, I'm not willing to admit defeat. The stories that you are telling others is, and I think the mistake I made, and maybe I've heard other people say that they made this same mistake, is they start from, this is what I love about ESP. Oh my goodness, you got to see this show. It is just fantastic. Do you have any idea how much they're making on this? Oh my goodness. And it's all about the money. It's all about everything that we kind of, as Tina would say, vomit on it. So that's that. So what do you consistently say to other people? What is the story you need to tell yourself in order to create the vision? And the story that you tell yourself in order to create the vision that you want to, as far as your balance between selling homes and listing and recruiting is I want to be great at recruiting, but I still want to sell 500 homes a year. You know, and I can do both. And one of the challenges with that is we tell ourselves negative stories. And those negative stories is I can do this or I can do this. But we don't tell ourselves that we can do both in a very high level, disciplined way. So the story that, one of the stories that Casey said that I liked a lot is she switched from a certain type of sales company, probably feminine enhancements, shall we say, to some other totally type of sales company. And she's just down in the dirt, and she wasn't doing any good. She hadn't made any sales whatsoever in this new company. And I forget what the second company was selling, but she was a good salesperson. And so it was shocking for her to be down on her luck. And it was shocking for her to not make any money because she was a good salesperson. And so she actually acknowledged the negative stories that she was telling herself. And so I want to ask you to acknowledge any negative stories that you're telling yourself. And I hear a lot of agents say, when you talk about EXP, one of the negative stories that you'll hear is, I'm not a recruiter. You know, have you ever heard that of anybody? I'm just not a recruiter. And so that's a negative story. I don't want to be a recruiter. You hear that a lot. So what she started telling herself is, I'm a top recruiter. I dress like a top recruiter. I walk like a top recruiter. I talk like a top recruiter. And she told herself that story every single day. And went through the first month of doing that and doing it actively and being somebody who was mindful and aware of the stories that she was telling herself. She sold 8 of their product that first month. So telling yourself stories is really, really important. You got to drop the negative stories that you tell yourself, and you've got to tell yourself what you want to create in your life, and choose how to fill your mind. And that's something that's very important, to choose how you fill your mind. You know, for years, agents have been talking about selling their business. If you've been in this business as long as I have, and maybe even if you've only been in this business 10 or 20 years, you've heard people talking about selling their book of business in real estate. Well, after 35 years in real estate, this is the only model that I've ever seen that creates something. Now, well, before I get to that, why would you want to sell your business? Why would you want to sell your business in real estate? Huh? It's worth something. Okay. It's worth something. And burn out. You want to, did somebody say retire? Yeah, I did. Retire? So I hear this joke all the time. You've never gone to a real estate agent's retirement party. They just drive through subdivisions or something. Nobody ever retires. But this is the program you actually have when you've got a hold of EXP. You actually have a way to retire and actually get money out of the work that you've done, the business that you've done all those years in real estate. So I think you got to take it. I have a lot of people who think their name is so big. You know, I deal with a lot of agents that, well, my name is worth so much. Listen, let me tell you how much my name is worth. The minute, have you ever seen a bucket of water? Have you ever put your hand in a bucket of water? The second you pull your hand out of the bucket of water, the water comes to, there's nothing, there's no hole in there. Nothing was left. So honestly, if your business is built on your name, what is it really? Do you really have a business? You don't really have a business model that you can sell. Now, EXP has given you some excellent resources as far as how to create a book of business that you could sell, that you could bring a family member in, that you could bring a partner in, that you could develop in ways that would outlive a normal person's career. So I'm going to give you some scripts. I think, honestly, before I go to that, I think any agent, as I look, I study those numbers all the time, and I see agents who've created top teams in our market. And this is such the perfect model to create a team. I have seen nothing that equals it. Nothing that equals it. And the way we all, some of us started in real estate, we started by selling homes as an individual agent. And then we got so busy that we decided to get an assistant because we couldn't handle all the leads that we were producing. And then when we got an assistant, maybe we decided to start focusing on listing homes because that was faster and that was more lucrative than working with buyers, because heaven knows they take a lot of time. And so we did that. And then when we learned how to get a lot of listings, we had a lot of leads created, and that's when we started big teams. And if you look at the top 100 agents in this town, you'll find that I think a lot of them, well, you're going to see about 10% will be new construction, and that's a lie because you can't go out and build a new subdivision every time you want to, unless you're certain people. So, but the other ones are people who basically have just developed their team and they have got the leads coming in, and now they want agents to help them work that leads. But there's somebody at the top of that team, and that team, everything goes under that person's name, this, that, and the other. This is the only model that you could be really happy like me if I recruited 10 people that did better than me. I would like to say that I had something to do with helping them create what they wanted. You know, what I created, as you know, being a single parent was pretty much out of necessity. Having 3 kids in college is not a cheap endeavor when you don't leave them with, and my kids didn't get scholarships. I want to tell you right now, none of them got scholarships. So I'm paying for the whole ride. So that's what happened with that. So I'll give you some scripts, and then I'm going to end up at about 11:30. But I'm going to tell you, the scripts are, I don't mind if you say no to EXP, but I'm not okay with you saying no to something you don't even know what you're saying no to. And that's what a lot of people do when you go at them too much and too forceful. I'm okay if you say no. I just don't want you to say no to something you don't know what you're saying no to. And as a person that's run a top team for years, I know this is the best model to run and develop a team. And I do know that. And you're in a business, a team leader, and maybe an independent owner, where you will attract agents that are lower in your volume, lower in an ability. I decided to put myself in a position to train and to give other team leaders and agents lots of ideas, lots of trust, lots of mentoring on how to achieve high levels of home selling success, which I have done and which I will continue to do. So, yeah.
For me, at the time, one of the challenges I had when I first got into real estate was being with the company and I did not have any training with it.
Right.
So I think, like with EXP, how do we say to people, this is a cloud-based, company, and a lot of newbies want that kind of brick and mortar hand-holding type experience. How do we get those newbies to say, oh, listen, I know it's not your typical, brick and mortar building up here. I know it's not your typical brick and mortar building that you're used to and that you may think you need. But how do we get them when they have that kind of objective because they're nervous or because they just have some issues about not being in a building or that kind of thing?
That's a great question, and I'm going to let my cheerleader, Martha, tell you exactly about the training in EXP. We've got freedom builders.
The number one answer to the question firsthand is COVID. If you're wondering how can I make this brokerage work for me without a brick and mortar necessarily, and they're still out there. Like Marti prefers to be in office, so she still provides that for her team, her agents. But COVID is what proved this model to work. It is really the way things are going, and we have adjusted and adapted to being able to do everything remotely and virtually and all that. So if they are kind of taken aback at the whole virtual or the whole brokerage model being, in your own home or working remotely, not having a brick and mortar, tell them, think about how we've survived economically with COVID happening. It's proven really the whole EXP model. So tell them, don't be afraid. It's working. It's actually the way things are going. Team leaders like Marti, they're realizing, yes, I want a brick and mortar. I want to provide that for not only myself, but for anyone else that works alongside me. But it's something that's not necessary. The overhead costs associated to it. I think that's one of the major points that they wanted to get across to people out there looking at other brokerages. Just one of them. And then Marti wants me to go into the whole training and collaboration aspect. Yeah, while they might not be in a physical office, they will still have the support because of the way this brokerage is set up, because the success of the company is directly reflected in all of us. They will have access to things like our Freedom Builders group, which is how we all found out about this meeting and all the other trainings that we do on a weekly basis. But then they have that cloud-based training too on EXP World. So they have all of these things at their fingertips, whether they want to attend physically or on a cloud-based setting. So.
And Tracy, if they really, really want to go to an office, EXP just opened, they're just kicking it off, it's brand new, like I just learned about it in the summit this week, that we've been going to, but they're opening up what they're calling success cafes.
Okay.
And they're basically a place where people can go, it's like a co-working, coaching, cafe atmosphere for EXP, Success Magazine people, just a place to go and work.
Okay.
Very cool.
One thing I would add is, even like your probably release coming into it, like once you come over, like there's a lot of myths out there, like that's the biggest thing people like, I didn't want to join EXP because it was cloud-based and it's a collaboration is real important. But once you actually come on board, there's more collaboration than you ever imagined. So it's a myth out there that you just got to discover. Go back to personal experience, like I'm not too sure, but now that I've actually joined on, there's more training, there is physical offices. So just tell your personal story, like I said.
Okay.
Yeah.
Personally, what I would also feel is that not having that brick and mortar structure, EXP is passing on that benefit to the agents.
Okay.
So we also get that, of course, if you are someone who likes to be in a setup, so you always have teams, and like what Maria said, you can work with other people, but you're still getting the benefit that a lot of other brokerages may not be.
Not really.
And I really think it's developed a whole new, I think it's more of the mindset of the way business is done now as opposed to the way business was done last century. I think it's more this century, that collaboration model. See, the reason you didn't get to know the hundreds of agents that you did business with over the last 10 years, if you've been in real estate, is because you felt your brokerage, your leaders told you were in competition with them, and you felt a great sense of competition instead of camaraderie. So I think EXP has broken the mold of that. So I would say that that's a big thing. You've got both in person, and I believe you're getting trained by people who actually do the business instead of the broker that, bless his heart, hadn't sold the real estate in 20 years. So I think you're getting active training from people who are really doing it. But the next thing I would say, and this is number 7, so we only got a couple more, is that you've just got to decide the and/or scenario. If you say, I've got to do this or this. If you have that comes from a scarcity mentality instead of an abundance mentality. And you've got to say, I can be good at selling homes and recruiting. And people are saying, well, I can only just sell homes. I can't sell homes and recruit. And that really does come from scarcity. And that makes you a victim of your circumstances. So you've got to choose to thrive, and you got to choose the abundance. It is a life choice of choosing abundance as opposed to scarcity. You can do both. So I work from abundance and attracting those that you can tell yourself, I work from abundance and I'm attracting those that are a match at working at the highest level of abundance in all areas of their life. And I give 100% of my attention. And, I know some people that do that. I actually think Holly's a great example with that. I think when she's with her family, she's giving them 100%. I think when she's with her clients, she's giving them 100%. So you can come from that abundance mindset that says, I create what I intend to create. And you really do. You do actively create through your mind what you intend to create. So, for example, I'm committed to finding ways to be more efficient in my business. I am absolutely committed to that right now. Another thing you could say, and I'm giving you a couple scripts, a couple of intros to talk to people. You've done so well in this business. What do you love about this business? What keeps you on fire about this business? What do you enjoy about it? So that's a way to get to know them and not say, hey, have I told you about EXP lately? And so the next thing you could find out, because you do have to find out if they've got something that they're trying to achieve. What do you want to get better at? What do you want to do better? I know you love this business, but what, if anything, would you change about your business? So you might start getting into some things that EXP could solve for them, because the problems that EXP has solved have been enormous. They've solved retirement, they've solved healthcare, they've solved additional ways to bring income to an agent that's selling home. They began the first agent-owned company that now agents get 50% of every commission. So they've solved a lot of problems. So what do you need? And another question you can ask is, what do you need to find in your business to go from where you are right now to where you want to be? And you kind of have to get them thinking about their vision for where they want to be 2 years, because they're in the forest. They can't see the forest because they're looking from tree to tree. They're looking from the next paycheck to the next paycheck. They're trying to figure out how to close the 5 deals they got under contract. So, and then another question you can ask is, what is your end game? What's your end game? Where do you want to be 2 years from now, 5 years from now? If it's a young person, where do you want to be 20 years from now? You probably can't even think 20 years away. And then, a really good thing to talk about is risk potential. And just to say, do you have what I would call it risk potential. And risk potential is real progression, requires taking risk and stepping out courageously. And honestly, that's what I did when I left Prudential in 1996 and went to the new model called Remax. That was a huge, huge risk for me, but I had risk potential. So do you have any risk potential? Do you feel that you have much more inside of you than is happening in your business right now? Do you feel like you're just not living up to what you're capable of doing in business? That's a great question to ask. I've always thought that you were the type of person, Tracy, that thinks really big, that serves really big, that plays big, that loves big and dreams big. Am I right?
That's exactly right.
Have I got you? So what are you dreaming big about? What are you dreaming big about for yourself in this business?
I dream real big and I dream in color.
That's it. That's good.
I dream of, I'm going to start on the subdivision. That's definitely going to happen. I'm going to do that.
It's awesome.
It's probably going to be an affordable subdivision first, but I'm going to create a new construction affordable subdivision for this team that we're all going to take advantage of. We're going to bring on a trainer of some type to teach everybody in here about new construction.
Good.
From the start, from the ground, going all the way up. We're going to do that. I want to retire. I'm going to go live in Italy for the summer. Everything. I want my
That's it.
to graduate high school.
That's it.
College,
So this is, yeah, I love that. I love that rant. So when you're talking to an agent, I'm good. I said, well, how are you doing in your career? I say, I'm good. And then maybe you talk to them the first time, they're a little bit, they're a little bit excited. And the next time you talk to them, I'm good. Are you really good? Are you dreaming as big as you can dream? Are you doing as much with your business as you can do? I want to find the people who are just not satisfied. Doesn't mean that they're not happy. It means that they are joyful while they're going towards their big dreams. So the next thing I would tell you is that entrepreneurs, and we in real estate, a certain percentage of us are entrepreneurs, have their antennas up all the time, and we're always chasing squirrels, the next new thing. I mean, we are up like that, like crazy. And we have to decide, and this is, I'm talking to me as well as to anybody else, what's going to give the most results for the time and effort. And to just think on that really, really hard and just do those things and to narrow our scope to what's going to give us the most results for our time and effort. So if we're going to devote, let's say 10% of our time to recruiting or 20% of our time to recruiting, we think about how we're going to approach that and we do that. And the last thing I'm going to leave you with, and I hope I've left you with, whether or not you're building your life based on scarcity or whether you're thinking from abundance, I want to tell you about your brain. It's so important. It's your biggest asset. The way you think is so, so very important. So I read this and I liked it a lot, so I thought I would bring it to you. It says your brain is the most comfortable staying absolutely the same. You're just more comfortable doing that. This is something that came from survival instinct. Let's call the caveman a long time ago. So you must alter your primal survival thinking. And somebody that is in a position, let's say they're making, I don't know, let's say they're making 100,000. They say, you know, I'm good. I'm supporting my family with 100,000. Let's say they're really capable of making $500,000, but they're good. So they don't want to alter that. You must alter your primal survival thinking, the kind in which the same nuclear gates and channels open up in your mind and let new chemicals pass through in the same way to create new paths in your brain. And this is actually scientific, but the way you put it just in common terms is the way your brain cells and your neutrons fire and wire to other neutrons is a non-scientific term that we call the same old, same old. And that's what we all are just involved in, is the same old, same old. We're going for the next check. We're doing things the same way. If nothing changes, and if you don't get anything else out of this, get this. If nothing changes, nothing changes. So you got to change something. And that starts with the decisions on building your life from scarcity or building your life from abundance. And that gives me 41 minutes of telling you what I've learned about recruiting. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.